Greetings. Welcome to ITR Live. I'm your host, Chris Hagen, and we're back here for another fun-filled, action-packed episode of the gold standard in Iowa conservative entertainment. John Hendrickson and myself here, ready to thrill and excite you. And I think I said gold standard already, so we don't need to say that again. It's Christmas time. Let's just go with it, John. But anyway, we've got some special bonus content for you today.
Yes.
Are you ready to pretend that we're actually here in studio recording this right after Christmas?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to pretend that we are not actually recording this a week before Christmas. Wait, this is live, up to the minute information.
Right, yeah.
Okay,
So
you good?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone. Did you have a good Christmas, John?
I did. Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. So you like that? Anyway, but this is an episode that we have wanted to record for a while. I'd like to say that there's a bunch of extenuating circumstances why we haven't recorded it. Mostly just I haven't gotten around to it. Mm-hmm. We've had a lot going on. But it's important because it's part of setting the stage for the year ahead.
Yes.
For some legislative decisions that will last not just this year, but into the future. And we're going to talk about Iowa's fiscal health and the state of the economy a little bit. So this kind of comes on the heels, John, and I'm going to let you do a lot of the talking today, but we have the revenue estimating conference. I think I'm going to take a minute to kind of explain how that budget process works. But 3 times a year, there is the revenue estimating conference, 3-member panel. You've got a representative of the Legislative Services Agency, a representative from the Department of Management, so the governor's appointee, and a private sector member. And I think it's an economist, but maybe I can't remember who it is now. But anyway, and so they meet. They have estimates about how they see the current year and the coming year state revenue and all the different types, sales tax, income tax, whatever the different fees are. They put an estimate out, and then that becomes the foundation for how the legislature moves through the budget process. And in past years, it was really important because you had a 99% expenditure limitation, which was calculated off that, and that would be the number. This is all we can spend. Now, we're in an environment right now where the revenue is actually, by design, lower than the budget is more than what the state collects in revenue. But that is because we are still phasing in the impact of the flat tax. So, way too much for me out of the gate, but the December REC met and does give us some guidance of where Iowa's at and where we're going moving forward, right? So let's talk about the December REC, and then we'll talk about, I guess how that fits in the big picture.
Yeah, no, I think you did a good job summarizing that because it's very important that the whole process is.
You had a bunch of notes. Did I steal a bunch of it?
No.
Okay,
no.
good.
I'm glad you because I didn't have any of that background.
I figured if I didn't say some on the front end, I wouldn't be earning my, my
that's
keep right here.
No, it's important to understand that. So the December REC when they met was actually was a little more optimistic than what a lot of people thought because the revenue estimate increased slightly. And so, in fact, they raised it a little over $18 million more, and that was because of a large chunk of it was increase in sales and use tax. Part of that was higher than expected consumer spending that came in, and I think in the future we need to do a little bit of a segment or even a program on the. I think it's underreported just on the benefits of what you guys did in 2018 on the sales tax modernization, because I think that's just been a good provision for Iowa.
Well, and if nothing else, you can go back and look at how good tax policy might not even just be tax cuts, but can set the stage for wins in the future.
Yes,
Doing it the right way on the front end can pay benefits later.
Absolutely. So, yeah. And so so we, it's actually moving in the right direction. So the revenue forecast for 2027, and of course, this can change, is they're forecasting a little over 4% increase, and so that was fairly good. Director Paulson said Iowa's fiscal foundation is strong, and so you have basically the reserve counts are full, the taxpayer relief fund has $4 billion in it right now, and so you have about $6 billion cushion. So the economy or the state's fiscal foundation is strong, and one thing
the state's economy is growing.
Yes, yeah, and one thing,
and we're going to get to that, but that's important because the state revenue and those aren't the same thing.
No.
The state revenue and the economy,
yeah,
but they do operate hand in hand. Yep. But the state is collecting more next year than it will this year.
Yes.
It's growing.
Yeah.
In fact, I think it was by a pretty good margin.
Yes, yeah. And the other thing that's going on and which made this, I think, more optimistic is you think of just the economic uncertainty on the national scene, both with the ag economy and still inflation out there. As you said, that part of this was the anticipated phase-in of the flat tax, but now you have these unanticipated economic challenges also factoring in. But one thing I want to mention, because this wasn't reported, was S&P, another credit rating agency, reaffirmed Iowa's AAA status, just like Fitch Ratings did earlier this fall. And so that was encouraging for Iowa. So that, I mean, they look at this stuff, look at Iowa's fiscal foundation. And so, I mean, these are some good things to consider. Now, with that said, I mean, this doesn't mean that there's not things to be cautious about, but I think, you know, it's definitely moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that's right. And these things, these phasing of the tax and the growth in Iowa's revenue, those aren't going to be fixed in 1 year. It wasn't planned for them to be fixed in 1 year. What we want to see is that growth, that rate ahead. So one of the things, and we're going to talk about sort of the global ITR issues in a little bit, but the state's budget is healthy, both by credit rating, ability to pay our bills. And yes, I think the whole world acknowledges that we are collecting less in revenue than we're spending right now. It is still scheduled. Those things are going to catch up. Mm-hmm. As the state's revenue grows and Iowa's legislature continues to hold the line on spending as they have historically, maybe it's not over the last couple of years but that will work. And look, as I remind legislators, okay, if you get into the future and you're still behind the curve, you know, you guys do control spending. You can just choose to spend less, right? But I think it shows you and that this whole thing is working, even despite greater headwinds than we planned. If you hear, you know, that Iowa's fiscal train wreck, that's all just political messaging to scare you to try and win votes. It doesn't go into the nitty-gritty of it. Yes, do legislators have is the need to restrain spending very real? Yes. Is there less cushion for new spending than there was a year and a half ago at the same? Absolutely. Is it still going to work? Yes. And is it still going to work while Iowans have more money in their pocket? 100%.
That's right, yeah.
Well, let's not forget that we are leaving Iowans with a lot more of their hard-earned money, and that is money that's going to go into the economy, and that money in the economy is going to reverberate much better than it would if government was spending
Absolutely, yeah.
So
and that's not even being taken into account yet. So in anything.
Yeah, that's right. So I think we're in a good shape on that growth.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think the other thing that we have to take in consideration is just the importance of, as you said, of being cautious in that spending, and because there's and one thing that Director Paulson said, and I think he used the term wild card, which I agree. He said the only wild card that we see is the ongoing changes at the federal level, which is something that they need to pay attention to, and that's the not just the economic changes, but the federal policy changes that are coming down. And that's because it's not just the tax changes from the one big beautiful bill, but also some of the other policy changes in areas like Medicaid and SNAP that they need to be aware of. So,
well, if liberals don't like the current fiscal picture of the state of Iowa, I wish they had sounded the alarm on what the Biden administration did to this country's fiscal health over the 4 years of that administration, but they didn't seem to care about that.
No.
But my point being, it certainly is reasonable to expect that the federal government may not continue to operate under the same terms with regard to the states that they have in the past. So you're seeing that in some ways they're good reforms, in some ways they're not. But you're seeing, like you said, with Medicaid, changing those reimbursements or whatever. But I think one of the things that we have talked about is the need for a very comprehensive, critical look at all of the areas that we take money from the federal government and all of the strings that are attached to them. There's the big one maybe is Medicaid funding. We get all this money from the federal government, but we come alongside of some state dollars, and there's all these strings attached on how you do the program. And the state has tried to find ways to do that better with cost containment, with trying to root out fraud, with work require, all those things, right, to make it better. And that's awesome. And those are the kinds of things we need to be doing. Now, you're doing that inside one of those big ticket items. Maybe there's other areas in other federal programs. The opposite of which is the state of Minnesota, as we talked about last time. That's just, hey, let's just blow it all, and who cares, right?
Yes, $40 billion surplus.
It's just more tax money. Who cares? It's not ours. So let's give it all away. The other one is school funding. More or less half of what gets spent in Iowa's public schools comes down from the federal government. So does that change over time as the federal government's budget continues to look worse? Although I did see that the actual federal budget deficit has shrunk lately. And maybe that's a whole other thing we need to talk about, but that ongoing year-to-year deficit has actually shrunk during the Trump administration. I don't think that's talked about enough.
No, it hasn't, and that's part of that has been the enormous revenue coming in from tariffs has helped that a bit, and so that's been a factor. And also one thing I think too, and that we haven't seen yet, is the impact of the and I want to say the positive impact of the One Big Beautiful Bill, because I think that will have a positive economic impact, is because you will see most taxpayers be able to keep a lot more income with the reforms, not only just the extension of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, but the additional reforms to that. I think I saw that when you look at the One Big Beautiful Bill, when you measure that with other tax reforms at the federal level, it's either the 5th or 6th largest tax cut in our history.
Wow.
And so it's fairly significant. And the president said, I believe last night, he said expect the largest tax refund
when you
season.
say last night, you mean like 2 weeks ago?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Just reminding you that we are pretending that it's somewhere before the first of the year.
This was 1920.
Oh, okay. All right. The president. You mean Coolidge, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, President said the largest tax refund season of all time. Expect that, and he said 2026 will be a major windfall for taxpayers.
Yeah.
That's what he's predicting for this, and
well, good. I think, too, just to maybe put a fine point on that, the federal government may not continue to send all the dollars to the states or may put new strings on something. And I think we're just telling our legislators they need to be mindful of that and think ahead to that. So we're on path. Just reminder, and I'm going to use this as the segue into some of the ITR issues, but we've talked about them over, so they're not necessarily breaking news, but the need for, let's just call it work on federalism, but that whole thing, because there's all kinds of them. I went through about a month ago, John, trying to pull up all the different line items of spending that the federal government has, and it's intertwined with state dollars. And it is mind-numbing, the number of things in all sorts of areas of the budget. And it's not a criticism of anyone, but a lot of that can get lost in the bureaucracy.
Yes, yeah.
Of, well, we just have to take those dollars and we have to spend it. Like, it's really hard. But I'd like to see our legislature over the coming years begin to look at that, and they have. In the House, there's a whole committee chaired by Representative Hans Wills that's looking at that, and he is starting down that path. But it's the subject matter is so deep and it's so dense that it's really difficult. But we would like to continue to work on that. Okay, so let's shift a little bit. I just kind of wanted to roll through this, John. because we released publicly before Christmas. See how I did that right there?
Yeah,
You like
yes,
that? Okay.
yes, yeah.
Our ITR 2026 Legislative Issue Guide, and they are the things that we have talked about on this episode. These are the things that our proactive agenda that we set that we would like the legislature to consider. Obviously, property taxes is front and center on that, and the need for a 2% hard spending cap.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. Yep.
And I don't know that we've talked about it so much. I don't even need to belabor that point.
No.
Other than 2%, we think is a reasonable number, and we think that is going to a number that will accommodate cities of any size, of any growth rate, and there's not a need for loopholes and exemptions. It's just a hard cap. And then we can start to bend down the cost curve over time. So, I mean, I don't know anything else. I mean, we've talked about property taxes so much.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
I just want to add quickly for our listeners that, a lot of times you'll hear that, 2% cut, this is a radical idea. It is not. I want to just say that liberal New England states like Massachusetts have a 2% cap. New York, and so this is not something that's really destroying local governments. This is a meaningful, prudent taxpayer protection,
and it is a protection that this organization has been championing for about 40 years.
Yes, yeah.
So we went back into the archives and dug it. Like this is an old idea.
Yeah. Yep.
To an even older problem.
Yes. Yeah.
But
yep.
Just as a reminder, we polled this in the last in September, the ITR Foundation poll. But again, almost 72% of Iowans support the 2% spending cap, and over half of Democrats support a 2% spending cap. We believe this is a easy win for this legislature. Yes, they're going to have to tell their local governments, sorry, we're putting in a cap, but this will be popular in what could be a challenging campaign for them. So hopefully they can do that. The property tax notification statements, John, we have talked about that over, I guess years almost now, but you've provided examples from Minnesota. We've seen other examples from places like Utah and Florida of where at the end of the day, we get different statements in the mail. And the intent of these is to plainly and obviously and clearly show an Iowa property tax payer, this is how much your bill is going up if they pass this budget, right?
That's the ultimate goal. Yes, yeah.
We're just asking for that simple piece of information. Right now, you have to go to an online property tax calculator, plug in some assumptions per 100,000 and millage rate here, and none of that. It comes back to the fundamental point. All Iowa property taxpayers care about is their bill. If you're talking about millage rates and rollback and levy here and all of this, you've lost the plot. What do I got to pay? That's all I care about. Maybe other people genuinely, they get up and go to work all day, make the money so they can pay the bills. And they're like, boy, I hope my millage rate comes back out at 10.48 again this year. I don't know what I'll do if that, goes up to, 10.5. No one's having that conversation. It's about the bill. So tell me what the bill is. That's all I want to know. Right?
That's absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So then that's doable because other states do it as well. We have, again, like we just talked earlier in this episode, sounding the alarm on budget restraint.
Yes, yeah.
And we got some ideas on that, but just making sure there's not even a specific number asked, but just a reminder. And maybe here's the biggest point of all those ideas, John. And boy, this has turned into a big monologue. So you're welcome to just sit here and continue to giggle as I go through this. That's fine. But if you add 3% to the state budget this year, that money's there forever. And so it accumulates. You're building the base. And so stop building the base up. And it's the dollars you don't spend this year save you every year going forward. That's why it's so important to hold the line in the current year. Again, things about federal funds are in there. The constitutional amendments, John.
Yes, yeah.
Go take that one.
Yeah, these are very important. There's two of them that need to be passed in order to appear on the ballot. The first would be would require both houses of the legislature to, in order to raise the income tax, to have a 2/3 majority vote. which I think is very reasonable. I mean, 17 states have this provision, and there are liberal states that have this, and independent states as well as Republican states. So, and then also the second one is the constitutionally protected flat tax. And one of the reasons why this is important is so that we cannot, a future legislature cannot revert back to a progressive multi-tax system, or possibly even create a wealth tax. And for example, today I read a paper where two individuals were arguing why wealth taxes were good for states, advocating that this is actually a good policy for revenue, was if you adopt a wealth tax on your residents. And we, going back to the conservative spending, a 2/3 majority requirement, a supermajority requirement, actually helps to restrain spending, and so that's another benefit of that. And it should be hard for legislators to raise taxes, and of course, it would force them to build consensus in order for them to do that, and that's not a unreasonable thing for them to do.
Similar to the property tax question, we've polled these on the ITR Foundation poll, and both are popular. The flat tax, plurality of Iowans support that, and the 2/3 spending limitation, or the 2/3 vote in order to raise taxes. Sorry, I get it all kind of mixed up in my mind, but that's almost identical to the property tax question. Yeah. So you ask Iowans, do you support this, the need to vote for 2/3 majority? And that's a 71% among all Iowans. And again, over half of Democrats support that notion. So these are good pro-taxpayer things. And the way the constitutional amendment process works in Iowa, as a refresher, the legislature, without the governor, this is just legislative action, passes this through 2 consecutive general assemblies, which the general assembly is the 2 years between elections. So both chambers passed this in the previous general assembly. The Senate passed them both last year. And so in order to get them on the ballot, the House would pass them this year. So that's where we're at. We'd really like to see those get across the finish line. And then Iowans get a chance to vote on it. As much as, it's going to be a race because it's putting together a campaign in a short amount of time.
Yes, yeah.
But would really like to see those happen as well. So that's kind of the gist of the base. There's plenty of other things that we will be involved in that we'll talk about, either for or against. But those are the big things that we'd really like to see out of this legislative session. Anything you want to? I guess I can't ask you to add anything to that because that's the thing, John.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be the big issues will be property tax and the budget, and because that's the type of year it is, and and there's a lot of national issues that are going to be overshadowing things, and so if you look at, I think,
and who knows, John. Some of those national issues may have come to pass even since we recorded this
episode.
That's true, yes. We could be flying blind right now. I mean, we could be at war with Venezuela right now.
Yeah,
who knows?
That's right, yeah. I hope not, but you're absolutely right. Things are so fluid right now. And
apparently we're at war in Syria. I didn't know about that.
Yeah. That's we need to have a foreign policy episode.
Yeah, it's about time.
But I think one big theme is just conservative budgeting.
Yeah. Yep. And I do. We have got legislative leaders and legislators that I believe are truly committed to that.
Yes. Yeah.
Look, we can go into any budget anywhere in the country at any time and find things like, you didn't need to do that. But the overall theme is that I believe there remains a commitment to restraining the growth in government in Iowa as much as possible. I know for a fact that they are watching those budget numbers. They are committed to making this all work, which is why I have a great deal of faith that it will.
Yes. I should have brought the quote with me, but I call it the Schultz rule after Senator Jason Schultz, and but basically he said famously, and I think it was at a subcommittee for the 2/3.
Yeah.
And he basically said you cannot have good tax policy unless you control spending.
Yep. And it's right.
Yeah.
It's
and
right.
I now call it the Schultz rule.
Good. Well, it'll live on. You'll make it famous. So. All right, John. Well, I wanted to cover those couple of things, but I think it's a little something to give tide the folks over until we're back here live in studio after the new year. So I guess as we try and pretend like hope you had a good Christmas, Happy New Year. I can say Happy New Year. I mean,
yes, Happy New Year. Yeah,
coming up. Yeah. But it's going to be an interesting year in Iowa, and we're going to be here covering it as we go through it. I think we're going to get some great wins, and I think we're going to have to really watch out on other fronts to see what happens. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
it's going to be a wild ride.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Thanks a lot. Thanks, folks, for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to tell your friends. So with that, we will see you next time on ITR Live.